Okay. And let me disable the waiting room. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. It is Thursday, March 23rd, and this is the March general meeting for Carnegie Vanguard. And it is a pleasure to see everybody popping in. Again, for those of you that just logged in, our communications VP is doing something more important. She's at her son's soccer game. So any glitches, any mistakes, any problems, 100% me. So please be patient. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for attending, for taking time out. I know that a lot of stuff has been in the news, so I'm going to go ahead and put that out front. As a PTO, as a nonprofit, we are not able to take any kind of stance in anything remotely political. I have no official opinion on the TEA HISD takeover, but obviously that's on a lot of people's minds. So we do, as a PTO, always encourage our parents, our teachers, our members to represent Carnegie, because I feel, and I think I speak for the whole board, that Carnegie parents are absolutely the most important representatives that we have of what is best for our students. So that being said, I want you to be informed of what is going on as far as what's going on in the district, just like we always have. We've always wanted our parents to be able to go to the board meetings. You know, we always want parents and appreciate when our parents are representatives at board meetings. So this is no different, in my opinion. I wanted to just share what meetings are available for those of you that have the interest and the time. So hopefully this is big enough. If it's not, I just want to mention that if you are signed up with the PTO with Membership Toolkit, you should have gotten an email last night with the agenda. So you should be able to see this on your own device. If not, we'll make sure that you are, so you can message in the chat, and we'll make sure that you're getting our emails. So this is just a quick outline of what the TEA, which is the state organization that runs all of the schools in Texas, has outlined for this process. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then just, you know, bear with me for a moment. The upcoming meetings about this, a couple have already happened. There's a couple that are still happening. If you're interested in attending, I believe that our past president, Susan, might speak to this in a little bit during the meeting. Also, there is a process for people who are interested in being on the elected board of representatives. I will share, or if you got the agenda, there should be a link on that first page that goes to this application, which is on the TEA website. Okay, just checking I'm sharing what I think I'm sharing. So on the first page here where it says apply, that's a live link that goes to that application. So if anybody from Carnegie is somehow able to represent our interests, please, I'd love to hear about that. That would be great. So that's all I have to say about that. Other than that, we have a lot of things still going on at the school in the short amount of time that's left. The school year has been going on so fast. We still have a lot of teacher appreciation events going on. Today we had a lunch. Alexandria has been our teacher appreciation one-woman machine. She's a committee of one. Today she did lunch for, I believe it's 64 faculty and staff. There are pictures on the website and on our social media that I believe Ms. Matsu put up for us. Amazing, just an amazing job. And then Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up next month. We also have a lot of other activities that are coming up. The different committee chairs and VPs are going to be talking about. Next month's meeting is going to be in person. So we're doing one in-person PTO meeting per semester. We're still trying to get a feel for people's appetite for in-person meetings. Since we are an all-magnet school, that's not convenient for everyone, but there are people who prefer that. Next month is the meeting that we had planned out ahead of time to be an in-person meeting. So April 20th. It's a Thursday. It is also 7 p.m. The idea is to give people a chance to get their kiddos settled. You know, some of us have younger children, you know, and we're actually quite interested in everyone's opinion about what is the best balance about time, place, location. Initially, we had not planned on having a hybrid meeting. Those haven't worked out that well. We may record the meeting and then post it later, but we're open to input. We've actually got a poll set up that now that I think, hopefully, most people have figured out how to log into this meeting, I'm going to attempt to launch this poll. I'd like to know how people found out about this meeting, to see how people are getting the communication, if they're finding out about the PTO meetings through social media, if they're finding out about it through email, through friends, through smoke signals. I'm not sure how people are finding out about it, but if they're still getting the robocalls, because those are coming out, but I know some people have unsubscribed, some people get them and immediately hang up, which are not nice because Principal Musk does a really good job with them. They're much better than the ones that come from the district, in my opinion. But I'm going to try to launch the poll. Let me see. Okay. All right, so hopefully you see something in front of your screen. So you may have heard about it multiple ways, but maybe the first way you heard about it or the main way you heard about it. Okay, so give it a full minute and then I'll go ahead and end the poll. Okay, I'm going to share the results. So I guarantee this is not what we thought. We were convinced everyone was on Facebook. So this is interesting. Okay, this is great. Thank you so much for participating. I think we should use those polls more often because obviously we don't know as much as we think we know. All right, so that's all I have. I'm going to pass this along to Aparna so that we can go over the minutes and vote on those. Aparna, are you here?
I am. I'm driving, but the minutes, I hope, are available on the website. Mary, I don't know if you were able to do that for me. They were a little late, but they're there to view.
They are. I have them, and I'll put them up. But hopefully, everyone I think got them in the email. But if not, I have them to post.
Thank you. For time's sake, they are publicly available on the Vanguardian website. So need a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Does anyone mind making a motion to approve?
I was searching for my unmute button. This is Susan Hawes. I will move to approve.
And I'm
Thank you, Susan.
Allison Moorhead.
Thank you, Allison. Do we have a poll today?
Yes, we do. And oops, I didn't realize I was still sharing the poll. I'm telling you, it's going to be interesting. Hold on. Okay. So all in favor passing the minutes versus, yeah, anyways, everyone can read. Hopefully everyone can read.
So I'm pretty sure they're approved by majority. And thank you. Let me know if you have questions.
All right, let me see. I'm going to stop sharing this time. Okay. We're a well-oiled machine. Okay.
Meeting video link.
Okay, so now we've got our treasurer's report with Mala.
All right. Thank you, Maria. Can everybody hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. If you can see, Maria has pulled up an income statement or statement of activity in her screen. This is up till March 23rd. Literally today, I finished it up till today and send it out. These numbers will be on the website, and it's our statement of activity, which has a revenue on top. It shows where we are channeling all the money from, and then in the bottom, it has where the money is going out. Now, this is already on the website, and I'm not going to talk this time about this because this, you guys can always go back to the website and see it. Today, I was told to be a little bit more specific and talk about where the actually money is going. Now, we all know money comes from the amazing community, which is our Cvhs community. Friends and family campaign is our biggest campaign. So the money coming, everybody knows. Okay, and the money comes because we want to spend it for our school, right? So today I'm just going to give you guys bullet points of what we have spent our money this year on. There's a so let's start today, as Maria mentioned. First, basically, it's about the teacher appreciation. So today we had a lunch for our teachers, and it was from a restaurant called Mendocino Farms, and it costed about $1,100 to procure a lunch for the whole school. So now you can imagine one lunch about $1,100,000, and we do about 7 of them every year, and so that's the math right there. And then next year we are planning to even increase this because these are very popular. So that's our big major expenditure item. That's number one. Second, we helped sometimes our teachers like to get the specific books from this whatever source they want, and HIST gives them something else. They don't like it. For example, our French teacher, she wanted a specific subscription, and PTO actually got her that as well. Third, PTO approved a field trip for our first generation kids to go to all the Texas universities. And I guess the club sponsor is Dr. Henny. And we approved $1,600 towards that field trip. And that is a request that just came in and got approved. So it is not in the statement of activity yet. Our statement of activity is on cash basis. So whatever you see is all that has been cleared from the bank. So that request just came in and got approved. And fourth, PTO helped. In fact, today only I dropped this check for $3,650 for our seniors in need who need help paying for their senior dues. So that's the fourth one PTO helped today. And fifth, as you guys know, I have said it many times, PTO gives every teacher $350, which they can spend. It's called stipend, which they can spend on whatever they want during their school year. And there are about 40 teachers. So it's over $12,000. So far, 7,000 of them has been spent, and the requests come every day. And we have our Amazon coordinator, Ms. Shea Pritchett, and she's the one who makes all these orders from Amazon or wherever the teachers want those orders to be fulfilled. Or if they have already purchased something, they come to us with their receipt and we reimburse them up to $350. So that's number 5. Okay, I've made this list. I'm sorry, guys. It's the bullet points I was told to go over. So, and now and you all get the communication from the school about various dances which are held in the school, like Snowco, for example, which happens in December or November last year. PTO last minute, there was a lot of requests that came for the food and drinks from PTO, and PTO gathered all the resources, and we paid for the pizza, for DJ, for balloon. That was again about $1,500 right there. Now this year, PTO did something different. We stocked all the bathrooms and pantries for our school teachers. So bathrooms got new lotions, nice soaps, candles, and then the teachers got coffees, snacks for their pantry. And we also got, so parents donated because the wish list that went out. Thank you for that as well. And then PTO got all these supplies together, and we are stocking the bathrooms and the pantry as they are getting emptied out. So this was a new thing PTO did this year, and this alone costed around $1,000 to $1,500, because I cannot say right now how much it's actually going to cost. I mean, it has already costed about $1,000 because the requests are still coming and school year is still left. And then PTO this year provided snacks for the magnet tours that happened for the parents that are going to consider Carnegie next year. So there were many tours that happened this year, and PTO provided water and the snacks for those tours as well. And then I'm sure you guys in 9th grade received communication from Ms. Matthew. It's a special newsletter you guys receive as a 9th grade newsletter. The subscription of that newsletter, PTO pays that as well. That's $69 every month PTO pays, because so to make that communication happen, basically. Now we do help some clubs. So this year PTO helped a Red Cross club paid some of their dues, and that was $600. PTO also keep a food permit in case seniors or any group wants to sell some food. PTO gives that food permit to that group so that they can use that permit and sell their food items. Well, I mean, my list is pretty long, but I'm going to stop right there. But this is all the bullet points I thought you guys should know. I know we don't have much time to go through each and every items in our statement of activity, and it's written in a accounting language. So this is what I had it for you guys, so you can all see where the money is going, and we need the community support. Always need a community support so that we can make all these things happen. Basically, a magic happen. So you are the magic, and we just a wand that makes it happen. So thank you so much, and over to Maria.
Thank you, Mala. I appreciate that. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. Sometimes we spend so much time begging, you know, and asking, and then we're remiss talking about it afterwards. You know, we do the expenses and everything, and then it feels like we're asking again, and we forget to say thank you. We forget to tell the parents, the community, what we did, what happened. So that's just an abbreviated list of some of the things that happen. And I know that those of you that keep up with the news, you hear about all these school districts and different schools that are losing teachers right and left, you know, teachers on strike, teachers that you know, are abandoning ship, teachers that are working 4 days a week, things like that. And we're so blessed. We've got such an amazing, you know, faculty that do so much. They go above, and they're amazing as teachers, obviously, but they also go above and beyond. They take on so many different clubs, you know, because our kids want to be, they all want to be president of 10 clubs, you know, and that means that they have to have sponsors, you know, they can't just make a club, they have to have teacher sponsors. So, and that's time, you know, at lunch, that's time before school, after school, weekends, you know, all of that takes, you know, our faculty is not huge. So we're incredibly lucky. So whatever we can do as a PTO to make their jobs a little bit nicer, a little bit, their day a little bit more enjoyable. But we can't do that without the support of all the parents. So next we have Mary, who is at her son's soccer game. The main thing that she wanted to emphasize is just make sure that your membership toolkit is up to date. I'm simply just going to quickly share my screen. I say that with no confidence that I can find. There we go. For some reason, my computer thinks that I am on Mala's phone. I have no idea how I managed that. Well, never mind. Okay, if you go to the Vanguardian website and you look on the left side of the screen, there are little icons and you should be able to hit join. Almost any of the buttons you hit will lead you to the same thing, which is called Membership Toolkit. And the reason that we need to emphasize that is because we are migrating like many of the schools. So if you have a kid that's in middle school or in elementary school, almost all of the schools in HISD have migrated to the system. Pretty soon, all of everything, including the website soon, is going to be on Membership Toolkit. So if your information is not in that, you are not going to get our emails. You're not going to get our calendar information, our events. So it's just really, really important that your information is up to date in that. Sorry that I'm not able to show that. I'm going to move on. Gari is our volunteer and membership report. Maybe she'll be able to do it. Gari, go ahead.
Hi, hello everybody. I see a raised hand, but if you don't mind, we will wait for questions till just kind of the board has gone through their discussion, and then we can take questions. And if you feel like you might forget, definitely go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll make sure to address it. So thank you everybody for being here this evening. I really want to give a huge shout out. Mala, thank you for kind of summarizing everything that we did this year. And we still have a good bit of runway ahead of us and a ton of things to do. But I was going through Membership Toolkit, which is the website that really tracks all of our members, not just the ones that are on the board and not just the ones that are on our committees, but all of our members, every parent that signs up to be a PTO member. I was going through it and I realized that we had upwards of 65 people that have volunteered this year towards all of the different activities we do. So, Mala went through a really nice long list of all of the things that we did for the school, for the kids, for the teachers, for other parents, and there's still lots of stuff coming up. And none of this happens in a vacuum, right? All of this happens with a lot of people, a lot of dedicated moms and dads behind it, everyone that's really hoping to invoke a really great high school experience for our kiddos that are in kind of their 4 years of this very special time. So keeping all of that in mind, this year we're starting a little bit early, and some would say it's not early, it's actually right on time. We want to start talking about next year, and I know that our year is not over yet, but we still want to make sure that we set up really well for the coming year. And the first activity that we want to do is we want to call on all the parents that have volunteered this year to think about if you will still continue to volunteer into the next year. It could be the same position that you're in today if you're on a committee and you want to continue on that committee, or if you have been part of the recipient of some of the committee actions. Maybe you attended a college information session and that invoked in you some, some goals of how do you get some of this information out to you, and you want to share some of the information you have on college with the rest of our parents. Maybe you want to sign up for that. Maybe you want to sign up for being a webmaster. We certainly need assistance with that. Maybe you want to sign up for fundraising because you see how well we use our funds, and maybe you want to sign up for teacher appreciation. There are a lot of different committees out there, and I have about 60 parents that we can all thank that jointly delivered all of the work that we have been doing from the start of the year and that we're going to do for the rest of the year. And I want to emphasize that I invite them all, and I'm expecting that all those 60 will come back and join us, except of course, if your kiddos are moving on to college, then I understand. But outside of that, I do hope that everyone that volunteered this year comes back and volunteers again next year. And I want to invite some of the new folks. Now, I also understand that there might be folks out there that put their name in to volunteer, and either you didn't get called, or or the committee just wasn't prioritized for whatever reason, and maybe you didn't get involved. But let's make sure we change that next year. So shoot me an email. We are taking nominations for next year's board as well as next year's committee. So if you have a special hidden talent, or even, and it doesn't even need to be hidden, if you have a talent that you want to share with us, we're looking for people to come forward. There's a couple of board seats that are changing this year, and we're really looking forward to inviting some new folks into those, as well as a lot of committee positions that really need some focus, and we want to invite all of you to go out there and take a look. So thank you, Maria. I see you've pulled up kind of our committee list. This is the page on the vanguardian.org where we've posted the committees that exist today. There's also a lot of clickable areas that you can go into. If you don't understand what a certain committee does, you can certainly look for some explanations, descriptions that are added in there. And if you're still not able to get your questions answered, shoot me a message at volunteers@cvhspto.org. That's volunteers@cvhspto.org. But I promise you, if you go to vanguardian.org, a lot of your questions will be answered. What do the different committees do? How involved do you need to be? What will you get assistance? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely yes. If you've never done it and you want to jump in because you feel like it's something you want to learn and you want to help other parents learn, then jump in, put your name. There are at least 8 to 10 other people that have either done the same job or will help you figure it out. So you're never alone. All we need is willing moms and dads or grandparents or uncles and aunts or whoever, godparents. We invite your whole family. Come in and help. And let's make 2023, 2024 just as fabulous and just as productive as 2022 and 2023 has been. Thank you. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you, Gary. Okay. All right. So our special events VP, Jackie, is unable to be with us. So I'm going to try to step into her shoes. The main thing she needed to discuss was the senior PTO awards, which is not the actual award ceremony, but the scholarship. Hopefully everyone who has a senior has seen this. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing. Okay, so the PTO Senior Awards. So every year, this PTO sponsors scholarships for our seniors. This has been steadily growing year by year. We've been trying to expand on this, and this is our biggest year yet. We are giving 7 $1,500 scholarships to seniors. This is exclusively for Carnegie seniors. And because of the kind of school that we are trying to fill a special niche. We give these scholarships. They are not need-based and they are not academic-based. Not that we don't look at those things necessarily, but that is not the focus of these awards. The award is based on who represents the spirit of Carnegie, the spirit of Cvhs. There's a rubric, and it's based on literally on the mission statement of Carnegie. So it's on the website. The agenda has a link, but if you just go to vanguardian.org, it's right there on the landing page. You'll be able to see it. The information is here. Applications opened on March 6th. And they are due April 1st. So if you know a Carnegie senior, they can apply. They need to just be a Carnegie senior, and their parent or guardian, one of them needs to be a PTO member. To be a PTO member, you basically just need to sign up with us on membership tool. Like, you need to be registered. It doesn't cost anything to be a PTO member. So if you know a senior, ask them, hey, did you apply? The application process, we've made it very simple. So it's low time, high reward to apply. But we do pick the best of the best. So please check that out. And next, Crash Bash, Allison Moorhead, our committee chair. If you see my background.
Yes, we're coming up. We're about 5.5 weeks out from the event, and we're busy getting fun auction items. We've got some Pilates classes and restaurant gift certificates and just fun different things to auction off. And so we are looking for items. If you have tickets to the Astros, the Rockets, the Texans, the Dynamo, we would love that. The theater, or if you frequent a restaurant or a place a lot, you can ask them to give you, to donate to our auction. Tickets, the event is April 30th from 5:30 to 8:30, and tickets are $65. You can also sponsor a teacher, which is great, so that, a faculty or staff member, so that anyone can go. And it's going to be at the Flight Club, which is a really fun, Maria's showing, there's 3 little pictures at the bottom. It's this really cool darts place. So it's a pretty heavy dinner, drinks and darts, and then just community and raising money for our kiddos to continue the programs that Mala talked about earlier. So, and we are having a committee meeting Monday, the 27th at 12 o'clock noon. And the link, the Zoom link is on the website on the calendar. And then if you want me to get your information, put your email in the chat and I will add you to our list. Thank you.
Thank you all. I just want to jump in because Allison has been an amazing chair for the Crash Bash. And I'm so happy that Maria has our Crash Bash design behind her head to demonstrate it. But the Friends and Family campaign and this spring social and fundraiser are sort of our way to earn the funds to do the things that Mala described. And, you know, I know we all are sort of holding our breath around what to expect with the TEA takeover, and who knows what that'll mean. And hopefully it won't make waves at Carnegie Vanguard, but we just don't know. And so I think that this is a really important time if you're able to support the work that we're doing so that we can continue to support the teachers and extend the experience for all of our kids at Cvhs, then we would be ever so grateful. So that's my
And I was also, I'm sorry, one thing I forgot to say is that I was going to add that even if you personally can't attend, please consider sponsoring a staff member to come so that we are, you know, giving them a night out and also raising money. You'll still be doing good. So thank you so much.
Yes, I'm so glad you remembered that. And also, if you can't attend, the auction will be live, I believe, a week, at least the better part of a week leading up to the event. So if you know you have to travel or something, you can still make a donation that way by purchasing something awesome. The volunteers have been hard at work and the community has really, I'm just sort of blown us away. So I think the auction is going to be good. So thank you so much, Allison, for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you both. And so just a couple of things. One, if you know how to screenshot or if you can take a picture of the QR codes or copy the link, have that on you. Just keep it with you. And literally this weekend, if you're with friends, if you happen to be around anybody with a small business, you know, your brother, your sister-in-law, whoever, and it occurs to you, oh, they could probably donate some service or anything. I mean, it does not have to be a big thing to our auction. Just they've made it so easy. It's like 3 questions on a Google form and just send it to them. I mean, just be like, hey, you know, my kid's amazing, right? Well, they go to this high school. That's, you know, they're getting this amazing education for free. Do you mind? And just send it to them. Just have it handy. So even if you're not going to go to the event, just like Allison was saying.
Right. And we can always, if it's a smaller item, if you think, oh, this is so sad, like $10 to Baskin Robbins, that's just an imaginary thing. We can group that with something else and make it a really great, awesome package. So everything is welcome. The information is beautifully set up on the site to be shared and sent to all your people. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. The other thing, the question in the chat, Dr. Elon and Jancy, yes. No, there are not regular meetings for those committees. However, your broader question, and yes, I saw you sign up for things and not get called specifically. I've made a point about it. I'm just going to call that out. My goal is, and Allison's done an amazing job of it already, is for every single committee, big and small, to have their meetings on the public calendar so that everyone knows when committees are signing up, so that if they thought they signed up for something, or if they wanted to sign up for something but forgot, they will have that information publicly available to them, so they know that, so that that problem hopefully gets addressed. But I'm happy to talk to you about that more. But no,
Maria, people can subscribe. They can subscribe to that calendar, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm a huge fan of, yes, I'm subscribed to 30 calendars. So that's the only way I can keep things straight. I've lost the agenda again. Okay. I'm Susan, past president and retainer of all data. Our past president is going to talk about FACE and a few other things.
Okay. Yep. I am Matt, or something might be title right now. So I have something that Ms. Sanchez asked me to pass along to parents. So Wraparound Services is sponsoring a prom clothing drive. And the due date is tomorrow. The kids should already know about this. She has publicized it to them. So this is, I'm letting you know so you can nudge them. They are collecting at school, and Ms. Sanchez will turn it in on Friday afternoon to the Wraparound people, prom gear. And that includes dresses, sport coats, dress shirts for young men, shoes, jewelry, evening bags. So if you have anything that is sitting in your closet that is in great condition that you would let your child wear to a dance, but you're never going to use it again, send it to Carnegie with your child tomorrow and have them turn it into Ms. Sanchez. And she is awarding them up to a maximum of 4 volunteer hours for items turned in. 2 hours per item, maximum of 4 hours, but they'll get volunteer hours, and she knows that will bring stuff in. Conversely, if you are the parent of a senior, or if there is an HISD senior in your life for whom clothing and the cost of clothing is a barrier to attending their senior prom, tell them to fill out a form with Ms. Sanchez or with the wraparound specialist at their school to sign up for the shopping event. That's the other side of the prom announcement. For all of this, I don't have a senior. I don't know when prom is, but I do know about the prom dress drive. Next on my list, FACE. One of my functions is I'm the FACE rep, Family and Community Engagement. Carnegie's a college prep program. We're very driven to college, and Ms. Cruz, our FACE liaison, is going to do a brief half-an-hour overview of the district's views on college and career readiness for everybody. Anybody who wants to come, you don't have to be the parent of an upperclassman. Next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And the link is, it's a Teams link, and that is listed on the school's page, not the PTO's page, but the school's official calendar. So everybody is invited. Please come. She would love to hear from you and share. Carnegie's very college focused, but they also talk about career and even military readiness. That's not a common path from Carnegie, but you might have a kid who thinks they belong in the Navy. So you can come and find out about that. And then the last thing I have to talk about is, I will be brief because I know others have more to say about this, but I did attend one of the community meetings from the TEA. It was something. I was at Westbury on Tuesday night. There was not a great deal of order. They seemed to come prepared to speak to a friendly audience and were not prepared to deal with an audience that was not especially friendly. They did keep it to an hour. Sheila Jackson Lee showed up. It was interesting. I would encourage everybody who is interested to come. There are 2 meetings. One's at Hattie Mae White next week, and then at Kashmir. Hattie Mae White on Tuesday. Let me check this. Sorry, Hattie Mae White on Wednesday, and I believe Kashmir on Thursday. So it doesn't conflict with the college and career readiness thing. It does, what they really do is they go over the steps for the takeover in our agenda here. And they also talk about applying for the Board of Managers. So if anybody here feels like that is a public service they might want to do, go and find out. And I would encourage people of peaceful and good intent to go and fill those seats and find out what you need to know. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, and I believe for our senior event update, we were unable to get someone to speak, but basically all senior updates are going to be on the senior page on the Carnegie website. So if you go to the Carnegie Vanguard page, if you go to our page, there's a senior page and it links to the school page. So either way, you'll get there. This page here. So I will drop this in the chat. Ms. Schultz, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't. I was interested in about the senior. Well, you covered what I was interested in talking about, but you covered it, so I'm good. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. And last but never least, Principal Moss with the state of the school.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. And definitely thank you for being here. I know at some point we had more than 40 participants. So thank you again for taking out your time to join us. And as was mentioned earlier, today was a lovely lunch provided by the PTO, and it was yummy. So thank you for putting a smile on our faces and making our stomachs happy. And I don't have much, so I won't be long. Similar to what President Calzada said about the TEA takeover, there's not really much that I can say. Number one, because there's not much that I know. Nothing much has been shared with employees of the district. And so we're quite unsure of the ripple effects and how, if at all, schools and students and employees might be affected. What I can talk about, a few things. The Cvhs budget. I did have a budget goals meeting on yesterday, and I don't really have much to report on that. My next official budget meeting will be held on the afternoon of April the 6th. And so I'll have a better idea of what Carnegie's budget for the next school year will look like. From what I can tell right now, I think we're in good standing. We won't have as much funding as we've had this year, but I do not expect to lose any members of our personnel due to any kind of budget shortfall. And as a matter of fact, we're hoping to add an additional staff member, someone who's going to help with testing, someone who will be somewhat of a data guru, and a little bit more. I did postpone our shared decision-making committee, or SDMC, until after my budget goals meeting. So we will be meeting next Tuesday, and I will share a little bit more information on what my expectations are for staffing for next year. And then I will probably have to call an additional meeting after I'm a little bit more clear regarding or getting closer to what our budget will be for the 23-24 school year after April the 6th. I did have to remind students today about certain freedoms and liberties that we have, especially during the lunch period. And of course, students can eat lunch and socialize and go to tutorials and many other things during the lunch period. But we have had some issues with trash being left throughout the campus. So I tried to present as best I could a positive message about how we can make some improvements. I suspect we had some good Samaritans that cleaned up after some of their classmates on the athletic field today. And I'm so grateful for them. But I think that our students can do a much better job cleaning up after themselves. So that was a reminder. I also placed a reminder in regards to attendance. Of course, this year we faced something that are called NGs, which stands for no grades, placed on some report cards due to some excessive absences. There were some genuine reasons for that for some students. And unfortunately for some others, they did not submit notes either from parents or from physicians within 3 days upon return to school from an absence. So we need to emphasize that for the spring semester. I did pull a report for students who had less than 90% attendance. And so information will be sent to those particular students. It's about 46 of them for the spring semester alone. So I just want to make that general announcement and reminder for all students to please make sure that they are in good standing attendance. It is not the school, it is not the district, it is the state that actually placed that NG for no grade on the students' report cards. And in particular, I want to emphasize this to seniors and parents of seniors. It's also an appropriate time to remind everybody there is no official such thing as a senior skip day. That does not exist officially. So if your student said that Mr. Moss or Carnegie said that we can do this, no, don't believe it. So if you have any kind of inquiry, if you need clarification, feel free to reach out to me. And last but not least, tardies. School starts at 8:30 a.m. each and every day, Monday through Friday. We have some students that I can't say they're taking advantage, but I will say they are abusing it. Of course, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, those we start the day with a 30-minute advocacy, but a student can actually receive an NG for that. We put that in place because we know that many times there are difficulties maneuvering traffic, not just for private vehicles, but also sometimes for HISD school buses. But we really need to make some improvements regarding students arriving prior to, or at the very latest, at 8:30 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So you'll probably receive some, I hate to say it, but some additional phone calls, just general calls reminding everyone of that. That's about it for me, unless there are any questions out there. I will check the chat if anyone has put anything in there, but I am on the call for the duration of tonight's meeting. So if there's an opportunity after our guest speaker, I'm happy to address any questions at that time. And thank you again.
Thank you, Principal Moss. Okay, so Mr. Holloway, Benjamin Holloway has been kind enough to speak every year for us. And I, as a parent, before I was an officer, have gone every single year. And I always get something out of it. This year, he was kind enough to agree to, well, he always asks what we want, but everyone's like, same talk. So, but this time we discussed maybe what has changed with applications after COVID. So I think he's going to talk to us a little bit about that. If you got the agenda again, hopefully you may have gotten a chance to go to his website. There's a lot of really good information just on that alone. I'm going to, once again, freeze up as I try to click something. Here we go. There we go. All right. So without further ado, since we are way later than we anticipated, Benjamin Holloway.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. If not, speak up quickly, because I know that people have things to do, and I won't be finished by 8, but I'll try to be concise. Please forgive me if I sound like I'm really congested from a bad allergy day. I only sound like that because I'm really congested from a bad allergy day and right on cue. But I'm a talker, and so I will keep talking. I want you to know that, as is my custom, everything I talk about tonight, I will put onto my website as a blog post within the next week. So if there's anything that you miss or anything that you want to go back to or anything where I spoke too fast, you can find it there. So it's there permanently. If you have a question, but we just don't have time, or you feel like it's too specific, or you don't want to ask it in front of everybody else, I am absolutely open for questions. And I'm easy to find. I am around. If you go to applywithsanity.com, there's a button you can press for contact, and you can send me a message. You can email me at benjamin@applywithsanity.com. Apply with Sanity is on Facebook. It's on Instagram. So I'm easy to find, and I'm happy to answer any follow-up sorts of questions that you might have. So yeah, the question was, what seems to be changing? What's different in college admissions, post-COVID, which is just a really fantastic question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share just my own personal experience as an independent educational consultant with, a small handful of private clients. I didn't bring a whole bunch of, I didn't bring a PowerPoint with a bunch of stats and charts, but I will say that I've looked this up, and my experience seems to be pretty typical, and I'm not going to be saying things that are really different from what seems to be the bigger picture going on in college admissions. I'm going to talk about 3 things that are 2.5 things that are really different sort of post-COVID. And the first one is, I think, overall, a really great move. And that is, since COVID, I talk about standardized tests a lot less than I used to, and a lot less than I ever thought that I would. As you know, a lot, or maybe you don't know, sorry, but a lot of colleges, most colleges, because of COVID, because students weren't able to, get to testing centers and get to testing sites, most schools went test optional. You could apply to these colleges without submitting test scores, SAT scores or ACT scores. And that has, for the most part, stayed the same, even a few years after. Some schools never went test optional, and some schools have gone back to requiring tests. About 4% of colleges require a standardized test. The most notable famous one is MIT decided that they really like standardized tests, and they think that it's useful to them, and they are requiring them. On the other hand, you have the entire University of California system, like UC Berkeley and UCLA and UC San Diego, who said not only do they not require tests, but they're not going to look at tests. They are now test blind. They just don't deal with tests at all. And so I have found that talking about standardized tests is just not something I do much anymore, which is a pleasant surprise for me. I want to be clear, most of my clients, and I think most high school students that I talk to and I hear about, still take an SAT or an ACT, if for no other reason because high schools are still giving them. There's still a way to give the test during the school day, and people say I took the test, they were given it at school. Most of my clients have SAT scores or ACT scores. A few of them still take both, though I'm finding a lot less of that. So they're still taking it. Testing has not disappeared. It is still a part of college admissions. It's just not the stressor that it used to be, because the colleges are not requiring you to submit test scores. Students know that if they take the test and it does well, they can absolutely submit those scores to most colleges, and they will look at them and they will think about them, but it hasn't gone back to being the sort of super stressor that we dealt with before. I have not had a strategy meeting with a client to talk about SAT in almost 2 years now. I don't have conversations about how many times should I take the SAT. I don't have people asking me what sort of test prep they should take and how to strategize about test prep. I don't have clients asking me, you know, what is a good test score? Those sorts of conversations have dissipated, if not completely disappeared. That's a really good thing, I think, in general. And that's a really good thing for students who, you know, maybe they don't test well. It's Carnegie. All of your students are really bright. We know that, but some students just have a special skill with, you know, standardized tests, and some students, as bright as they are, don't have that skill. And so for those students who just don't test as well, which is about 1/6 overall of you know, high school students, this is really good for them. They don't have that stressor anymore. They know that their test scores, you know, might be well below what the average is for college, and they don't have to submit them, and they can show off things that they do well rather than getting completely distraught about the part that they don't do well. I don't have as many clients taking multiple tests. I don't have as many clients who, you know, it used to be that everybody wants a round number. You know, a student who got a 1490 on the SAT and should be absolutely thrilled about that would want to take the test 2 or 3 more times because they wanted that round number. They wanted to get up to 1500. You know, those sorts of arbitrary things just aren't really happening anymore. It can be frustrating for students that do test really well, for students for whom they thought that their standardized test scores were going to be the centerpiece of their application. The landscape has really changed around them, and that is no longer, you know, it wasn't a guarantee before, and it's even less of a guarantee now that strong test scores are going to be a strong factor in your application. Sorry, I'm blanking just a second. Overconfidence in test scores has always been something that I've dealt with, and I've talked to students, and we have to remind them that, you know, those really super elite private fancy schools that we've all heard of, like Harvard and Stanford and University of Chicago, they in the past have denied people, even who had perfect SAT scores or perfect ACT scores. Those perfect scores were never a guarantee. And now those perfect scores, or really high scores, really impressive scores, are just, to a large degree, another piece of the picture, and they're an optional piece of the picture, and they're not what they used to be. The strange conversation I have had, and a couple of times in the past few weeks, it's come up. Clients have asked me, and so I'm going to pass this along. I don't know where they're hearing this from. They don't want to tell me, but they have heard from out there that colleges will tell you that they don't have a preference, SAT versus ACT, but that they really do, especially the elite schools. There is a test that they really want you to take, and they just won't tell you. And then they asking me about that, and I want to pass along that they do not have a preference. There is no, there's no secret menu. Most students take the SAT or the ACT, and the biggest determinant of which test you take is geography. We live in an SAT state where lots of schools give the SAT during the school day, so everybody can take an SAT. Along the East Coast and the West Coast, Texas and Florida, those are the places where the SAT is strongly dominant. And then in the rest of the country, the ACT is strongly dominant. And there are schools where they take time out of the school day to give an ACT. And no college out there wants to eliminate, you know, half of their pool just because they don't live in a geographic region that takes the test that they really want. They are very familiar. The colleges are very familiar with SAT scores, with ACT scores. They do not have a preference. They don't secretly have a preference. There's not a special club that happens to know what the preference is. It's just not there. And when I have students stress about test scores lately, it's been that question, which I wasn't expecting, but I wanted to pass that along to you. While we're talking about test scores, and before I move on, I want to tell you that you can still look up the mid-range test scores for colleges, you can find out 50% of their accepted class got an SAT score or an ACT score within this range. And so if you're sort of in the middle of the pack for them, if you're in the top 25% for them, if you're in the bottom 25% for them. And I want to remind you that those scores, once schools are test optional, get less and less reliable, because only the students who feel confident in their really good scores want to send along scores. And so you're no longer getting the mid-range of all of the students who got accepted into college. You're getting the mid-range of the students who submitted scores. There are schools lots of schools actually, who are asking students after they're admitted and show up at college, will you please voluntarily tell us what your test scores were if you didn't submit them, so that we can have a better picture of what those stats mean, what our mid-range really is, not just the really good ones who submitted. But it's optional. I can see where students are paranoid and don't want to submit those scores. They're afraid, oh, now they're gonna accept me if they find out what my scores really were. They don't. But just a word about those test scores that you see, and you can look up a school's range and what the average SAT score, the average ACT for college is. Every year that those schools are test optional, those numbers get less and less reliable and less reflective of who actually goes to the school. And that's one of the byproducts of being test optional. So keep that in mind when you're looking at those numbers. If those numbers seem to be creeping up really high, that may just be because only the people with the really super high scores are submitting scores, and it's not reflective of who actually gets in. The second really big change that I have seen post-COVID is that the entire application season has essentially moved up by 2 to 3 months. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean by that. Most regular decision applications for colleges at most schools are due in early January. There's not a set date, but for most of them, it's early January, January 1st, January 3rd, sometimes as late as January 15th. And that's sort of your window for when you submit your applications. And, a few years ago, December was always really busy for me because I had all of these students who were finishing up their applications, getting ready to submit. We had been working on essays as far back as the summer, but once it starts to get really real and they're about to start submitting, they want to talk about essays more, and they have lots of questions about the application process. And December used to be just really busy for me. They would send off the applications in January, and then January and February, I would wonder if my business was about to fail because I would not hear from anybody. January and February were always really light, way too light, waiting for calls to come in to see if anybody wanted me to work with their students. And usually right around spring break, a week or two before spring break and a week or two after spring break, all of the inquiries would come in, and I would, get my next pool for the next year. I typically only work with students who come in the spring of their junior year. That's all been moved up. The regular decision due dates have not been moved up. What I found is that almost all of the people that I work with are now applying to college early in some form or fashion. Whether they are applying, the binding early decision that's typically November 1st, whether they're applying early action, that's also November 1st, typically, but doesn't have all of the promises with it. It's just, hey, if I submit my application early, will you give me my, decision early so I can plan from there? Students who are applying to the really, the big public universities in Texas or outside, Texas A&M has a really early application deadline. I'm getting more students applying to those schools. And so for whatever reason, some of them are just applying early to places that have, rolling admissions, and they just sort of get word early. I found that October has become my really busy month as everybody's finishing up those early applications. And then they still often apply in January for the regular decision, but their applications are pretty much done. They've worked really hard on the essays to finish them. They've got everything entered into the common application. And December has become really light for me because so many people are applying early. that is happening nationwide. The sort of stats that we have, and this has already been proven true this year, is that most colleges who do have some sort of early application, whether it's early action, early decision, something like that, are finding that those numbers are going up. They're having to defer more people to the regular pool because they're getting so many early applications. You know, with my clients who seem like a good fit academically in terms of knowing what they want and financially. Students who seem like they might be a good fit for applying early decision. A few years ago, I might ask, are you going to apply early decision to a school? Now that conversation has become, which school are you going to apply early decision to? They have found that, you know, because especially the super selective schools admit so many students from their pool, from the early decision pool, more and more students are applying early. On the back end, it's also happening earlier. I no longer think that my consulting business is over in January and February. Those have become extremely busy months for me. By spring break this year, I was already turning people away because my roster was full. I'm finding that juniors are now coming to me in January of their junior year. December and November of their junior year, I was getting inquiries, and I was basically asking them, I asked some people to wait until January so I could get a better sense of things. The entire season for me has been moved up about 3 months. And that's something that happened during COVID. And I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. I think a lot of it is during COVID. One thing I noticed, sorry, I'm going to go off track a little bit. Last year and the year before, I took on a lot more clients than maybe necessarily I wanted to, but I was getting so many calls from so many people in their junior year, even into the beginning of their senior year. And I know that was happening nationwide because I'm on message boards and everybody's saying, I'm completely full and they keep coming. Is there anyone who can take extra clients? I think that's because while most students had access to instruction and their teachers online during COVID, they did not necessarily have the access to their counselors during COVID. Everyone at Carnegie knows that, you know, a huge portion of those really great acceptance numbers and where people go to college boils down to, you know, just how effective Ms. Chapman is at cornering people literally in the hallway and getting them to think about things and to finish things. And for a while when people weren't at school, that didn't happen. That didn't happen lots of places. So we had this huge influx of people who didn't have access to college counseling, looking for outside college counseling. And I think that has calmed down. But I think that sense of urgency that came with that, with the younger students who are now becoming juniors and seniors, I think that urgency is still there. I think that they are seeing this, you know, when you look at the numbers for admission and the schools with really, really low admission acceptance rates are getting lower and lower and lower. The sense of urgency that started with COVID, I think, is going to stay there for at least a few more years. And so this whole process has moved up a few months. And so I want to make people aware of that. If your student is not moved up in the process a few months, if your student is on track to have all of their regular decision applications ready for early January, that's absolutely fine. And I don't want to make it sound like everybody must be in a rush and that everybody must apply, you know, in November. But I also think it's fair for everyone to know that that is the trend, and that for people who are applying to more selective schools, the early application options, and there are usually several, are becoming more and more popular and more competitive because of that. One more thing that I have seen, and I know I'm moving really quick, but I'm trying to be respectful of people's time. And again, I'm open to questions when I finish here and then online later. Another thing that I've seen is that I can no longer talk about what is a normal number of applications, how many schools a normal student applies to. I used to say 4 to 12. Was sort of the range that I was looking for. And most of my clients applied to usually around 8 to 10. What I have found, and this goes along with that schedule being moved up a few months, is that students are applying to fewer colleges because they apply early and get in and they're done. Whether they get accepted early decision, whether they get good news early action and they decide I'm done with this, whether they get accepted to the large publics who tended to do things earlier, and they don't have to keep applying because they've got the news that they want early. I have more clients applying to 1 or 2 colleges than I ever had before because they're applying early and because they're getting good news. The other side of that is that the students who are not applying early or are applying early and not getting the news that they were hoping for are now applying to more colleges. Those students the past year or two have been applying to 12 to 15 instead of 8 to 12. I had a client, and this was against my advice, but she applied to 23 schools, which is tough to do because a common application only gives you 20. So you have to find schools that are not on common application. I had clients who had a really great plan. They were going to apply to 4 schools and they were very well chosen 4 schools. And then several of them were going to colleges that were not part of that original plan because they felt this urgency and ended up applying to 8 instead of 4. Students who would normally apply to 8 are now applying to 10 or 12. And so I'm really seeing the split, and I think it's likely to continue for the same reasons that these other things are going to continue for at least a few years. Is that they're applying early and getting accepted and they're done with it really early. I have students that I haven't really talked to since, November. I've got a couple who say I've been accepted to 4 and I'm just waiting to hear from Georgia. And once I hear from them, I'll know. I've got several who applied to 1 and are done. The rest are applying to more and more. They're feeling more of the stress. They're feeling more unsure about where they might be accepted. Part of it is because of the testing. They can no longer look at a school's, mid-range and see if their SAT scores or AT scores kind of fit with that. And so they're applying to fewer schools or they're applying to a lot more schools. And if you do have a student who is not applying early, that's another thing that I want you to know is that number seems to be rising. I don't remember the exact stats, but I was looking it up just to make sure that my experience is true elsewhere. And I saw that the number of students who have applied to 10 or more colleges has gone up by something like, I think it was like 30% over the past 5 years. It's really become a boom. At a place like Carnegie, I happen to know that it was kind of common for students to already apply to a lot of schools. And now the rest of the country is also doing that. And I'm expecting Carnegie students to end up applying to even more schools. And so be prepared for that. Be prepared to juggle a lot of different applications. Lots of schools do have free applications. Lots of schools do have application fee waivers that you can qualify. But otherwise, especially if you have a 9th or a 10th grader, I'm just going to say, go ahead and set aside an extra few $100s that you weren't planning on over the next year or two for application fees, because students are applying to more schools unless they're applying early and applying to fewer schools. But I'm seeing a lot less in between. I think that I rushed through everything that I had. And I'd love to take questions if people have questions. If people don't have questions, I can throw 2 more little tidbits at you, but I really like questions. And so I don't know if they're in the chat. I'm looking real quick. What are the key determinants for college admission now, considering standardized tests are no longer that important? The same things, just all the other things have more weight. And that is, GPA. And it's not just your GPA, it's what they call strength of schedule. And this is something that I talk about with students a lot. They don't just look at your GPA, they look at your transcript. Your transcript tells a story. There's a narrative there. Someone who really struggled in 9th grade, but got their feet under them and did better and better and better, can end up having the same GPA as someone who started out as a superstar and has struggled and got worse and worse and worse. They want to look at that narrative more than just your GPA. And so they look at those transcripts very carefully. Did you take the stronger classes that you could take. That's not an issue at Carnegie. You know, everybody takes so many AP classes that you're really covered in that sense. The strength of schedule is something that is taken care of for you at Carnegie. It doesn't feel like a blessing when you're a student in the middle of it. It doesn't feel like a blessing when you're a parent with a student in the middle of it. But when it comes time for applications, that really can be that sort of strength of schedule is already there. Your essays, of course, are really important. How much you interact with the college can be very important. Some schools put more weight on that than others. It doesn't mean that you have to go fly around the country and go on tours every places. It does mean, you know, getting on the mailing list and opening emails when they send them and clicking on the links on the emails. It does mean if you go to a college fair or you go to see a representative from a college, you make sure that you sign your name so that they know you were there. Those little things can be important. There's no really new elements to an application. Interviews are pretty much gone for the most part. It's just they all have, it's holistic. It's looking at the whole picture. There's very few schools have any sort of formula anymore. And so all the parts start to equal, you know, count equally rather than your GPA and your test scores being the main things and the other things are sort of marginal. And I still work with a lot of students and I especially work with a lot of parents who think about college applications that way, which I totally get, is that your GPA and your SAT scores reign supreme and the other things are sort of marginal things that might help you a little bit. Those other marginal things are now equal to the other things. And so you really want to present your whole package to show them exactly who you are and all the ways that you can, because that's what they're looking at, not just the numbers.
Could you speak to a little bit about GPA and rankings, particularly at a school like Carnegie, where the ranking is so tight?
Right. Ranking is extremely important if you'd like to get automatic acceptance to a Texas public university, because that's the system that Texas have. To be, you know, if you're in the top 10% by rank, then you have automatic acceptance to all of the Texas public universities except UT Austin. Their cutoff is now top 6% because they have so many applicants. That doesn't guarantee that you'll get into necessarily the major that you want or the honors college that you want, but ranking for Texas public universities is extremely important. For the rest of the world out there, it is not as cutthroat about your rank. It is not that big a deal. I won't say that it's nothing, but it's just not nearly as important to the rest of the world as it is to Texas public universities. Your GPA, that number, the first thing they're going to do is ignore that number because the colleges are getting schools that have a 4-point sort of college system. They get applicants who have, like, Houston, a 4-point weighted where you have your unweighted GPA and your GPA. So it's really a 5-point system. There are schools out there with 6-point systems. There are schools out there with 12-point systems. There are schools out there who don't provide grades, but only a narrative from the teacher. And again, this goes back to why that transcript and your individual courses, what you took, what classes you took, how you did in those classes, how those changed over the years, that is much stronger than your GPA or the rank. Did you take challenging classes, and how did you do in them? That's really what's more key than the numbers of the GPA or the rank. There are colleges that don't ask about rank at all. There are high schools more and more are trying not to give ranks. In Texas, you kind of have to because of the whole Texas public university system. But, I've worked with plenty of students who say, our school won't tell us our rank until the very last minute, or our school only tells us our rank if a parent asks about it. They're really trying to cut it against the weird emotional competition and that you get over rank and literally comparing yourself to your classmates rather than, who you are as a student and for colleges. And so what I would tell, any high school student is, pay attention to your individual classes, because That's what the colleges pay attention to. They look at your transcript. They look at the narrative that that transcript shows. That doesn't mean that, you know, you have to have a perfect narrative. Your narrative does not have to be, you took all the hardest classes and you aced them because you are a genius. That's not the only thing they're looking for. You know, they may see, wow, this student really struggled. This student really struggled in their junior year. You can see their classes are going great, and then something that obviously did not go great, and then they were able to bounce back. That could be a really compelling story sometimes. I've seen students go on to some pretty amazing places with a dismal sophomore or junior year or semester. Really pay attention to the narrative and start thinking about, if you're a student, start thinking about the narrative that you want to tell. You know, how would you explain your high school career to somebody? How would you explain what your strengths are? How would you explain what you're still working on? How would you explain your grades over 4 years? And that narrative, to the extent that you get to control that narrative, because you're writing essays and you are writing answers to short questions, and you get, most schools ask you, you know, is there anything about your transcript you want to explain? And you have a chance to do that. You have control over that narrative to a large extent. They can look at that narrative, and that's what I really want, especially the 9th and 10th graders, to really focus on, is to not be too focused on the overarching numbers of rank and GPA, but to really be focused on what sort of narrative is your transcript going to tell? What sort of narrative are you going to tell? One of the things I say all the time to high school students is, it's not the choice you make, it's how you explain that choice. And the more you think about explaining your choices, the stronger that application is going to be, even if the numbers aren't perfect. Not sure I answered your question, but
No, you definitely did, and I think one of the first questions you were in the process of answering is if the emphasis is not on SAT, ACT so much. What are the key elements? Essays. Where do essays fall?
At most schools, essays are a huge part of it. Essays. You know, you have two, as a student, as an applicant, you for the most part have two great opportunities for you to control what they hear about you and who you are as a student beyond your transcript, and especially beyond test scores. The first is in your essay. That's when you get to show them, you know, on a basic level that you can write well, that you are ready to write at a college level. Not necessarily that you've already mastered college level writing, but that you're able to write at a college level. They want to look at your writing and make sure that, you know, they think that it's strong enough. And then they want to see who you are as a person. And who you are as a person that you're able to explain to them is always more interesting than beginning with thinking, what do they want me to say? I dissuade everybody from looking at, you know, here are essays that got people into really great colleges last year, because those essays were really interesting about other people. What's interesting about you? The other place that you get to show them who you are as a person is with your letters of recommendation. That's obviously not completely within your control, but to the extent that you can find the teachers who have good things to say about you and can back it up with evidence, who can tell stories about you, those are the places where you really get to show off who you are and where you get to take more control. And I want all students, and especially Carnegie students, to really, really pay attention to those elements, the essay and the recommendation letters, because those are words and not just numbers, you know, and those are sentences and not just a chart. And that's where you really get to show, you know, what your strengths are. You get to talk about your personal life if you want to in your essay and show that off. Those are places where students really have a lot of control over what the colleges hear about them and what the colleges think about them. And so that's where I would put a lot more emphasis. So I'm going through the chat. My son is a junior. What should I start doing at this time to prepare for applications in the fall? I'm going to give you the basic timeline that I use with my clients. It's pretty loose, but I'll tell you what it is, and so you can, you know. And if you're behind, that doesn't mean that you're never going to catch up. If you're already ahead, that doesn't mean that there won't be hiccups or surprises along the way. But the basic calendar that I use is in spring of junior year. That's when I talk to clients. I talk to them for 2 hours before making any recommendations, just to get to know who they are as a person and who they are as a student. And then I start recommending colleges. These are some places that I think might be interesting to you that I want you to check out. I usually start with around 30. So in the college application sort of lingo, that's your long list. And I think it's really good to have a pretty solid long list of schools that you think you're pretty interested in by the end of your junior year. Schools that you have heard of, that you've looked at, you've started to get their attention by signing up to be on their mailing list, opening their emails, clicking on links, actually have interactions, in a relationship with this college. That's where I want people to be by the end of the school year. And again, if you don't start that until summer, that's okay. But that's where I am in the spring, is I want students to already be sort of focused to take the roughly 3,000 colleges and universities that are out there and narrow our focus down to around 30. That's going to change. It's going to obviously get smaller. They're not going to apply to that many, and schools will come and go. It's not a solid list. It's a very fluid list, but that's where I like students to be by the end of their junior year. And the summer is when I really want clients working on essays. It's not that they're doing nothing during the summer, but they're not at school during the summer, and they tend to have more flexible time. And so I really like to do essay work as the main focus of the summer between 11th and 12th grade. I want every student going into the 12th grade with a really solid first draft of at least one essay. It may not be the final, they may end up having to write more, but I feel really comfortable and happy with my clients when they have a really solid first draft of a long essay, 650 words, when they start their senior year. What happens senior year depends on so many different factors. If they're going to apply early, where are they going to apply early? What is their strategy for early applications? We talk about that a lot in September and October for mostly November 1st deadlines. And then by that time, I'm usually backed away from the clients. We check in, they ask questions. I get lots of last minute emails and calls, but the strategy is done. We know where they're going to apply. We have their essays, and they are finishing up their applications, for those January regular decision deadlines if needed. So long list by the end of the spring, work on narrowing that down and really work on essays during the summer between 11th and 12th grade. 12th grade is when you make your final narrowing down to, like I said, 8 to 12 used to be the norm. Now it's 2 or 15. To a large degree, but know which schools you're going to apply to, finish those applications. Spring of senior year is literally the reason why I got into doing what I'm doing now, rather than still being a teacher at Carnegie Vanguard, which I was years ago, if you didn't know that about me yet. We think about fall of senior year as being the stressful semester, because on top of school, on top of everything else, you're doing these college applications. What I saw year after year for so many students is that spring was actually the truly stressful and frankly, sometimes agonizing part of school, is when they started getting their acceptances back, when they started having to make actual decisions, when they'd had their choices narrowed down, where they realized that maybe they didn't put in their best application, or they put in too many applications. They got accepted to too many schools, and they were overwhelmed with making that final choice within 4 to 6 weeks. They had always thought that they were going to go to one school, and that was no longer an option. Those sorts of things can really, really weigh down on your social and emotional health during spring of your senior year. And the best way to prepare for that and to combat that is to have a really good plan put together, so that you know exactly what you're doing, and you have your plan A and your plan B and your plan C before those announcements start coming back to you. And that's really what I'm focused on, is I know that I've done my job well when my clients are happy in the spring and not calling me panicked because things aren't going well. They're not quite sure what to do next. So that's my general outline for how I think juniors should do it. I don't take clients before their junior year. I don't encourage I don't encourage families to talk too much about college before that, or to get too set in plans, because I've seen too many students really change, in that time. If I have a client who doesn't know what they want to major in, I don't push them to figure it out. Their parents often do, but I don't, because if your future is unknown, there are colleges that can work with that, that are built for that want students who, are undecided about their major. About a third of college students change their major. So don't feel like anything is set, and don't push too hard to make everything set. I want 9th and 10th graders to really focus on being a good high school student. That is the best way to prepare for college applications, is to be a good high school student. And then spring of junior year is when we add on this extra layer of college applications. Letters of recommendation requirements might be changing. How much weight is put on those, as most of them are going to be positive? That's a great question. I don't know that they are changing a whole lot. To the extent they are changing, I think it's because, and again, this is built into their holistic process, colleges recognize that more and more students are applying to college. That's taken a dip a little bit, COVID, but generally speaking, more students are applying to college. More students are applying to more colleges. They know that teachers are getting overrun. And if you don't have the best recommendation letters, that's not necessarily going to tank your applications. It really helps to have good ones. But I have not heard anecdotally or officially or statistically of someone who would have been accepted were it not for, a lukewarm recommendation letter. If a recommendation letter says this is not a great student, this is a dishonest person, that can obviously be a problem. That student should not have asked that person for a recommendation. That was a blind spot. Recommendation letters are always tricky because you're kind of in control, but you're not completely in control. It may be that the teacher who is best suited to write a letter for you is unavailable to write a letter for you. And colleges are aware of that. They do their best to really look for what they can find, and they're not looking for things to hold against you. At super selective schools where they have way too many applications, obviously that can get a little bit tricky. And every little thing might be the difference, but you never know what that little thing is going to be. And for students and parents who are really stressed out about how do I make the perfect application, that may be one thing that I really want to repeat is that, the thing that might be really good for you, you never know what that's going to be. You never know exactly what colleges are looking for, because they're looking for a wide range of things, many of them that have nothing to do with you. My favorite example that someone else gave is, if there was a college that prides itself on having students from all 50 states, and their one student from Nebraska is graduating that year, right? Kids from Nebraska might have a real leg up that year because they really want somebody from that state. That has nothing to do with you. And you don't know what that thing is going to be that year. You don't know what their institutional priorities are and exactly how you're going to fit into that. What you have to do is do the very best that you can. Hopefully you have a good transcript. If you don't have a great transcript because you had some rough spots, do your best to explain those. Do your best to show that you are a really bright, thoughtful student. Give them the best recommendations that you can, understanding that they may not be the best overall. And then apply broadly enough and strategically enough to schools where you're going to fit somebody's profile and that they're going to accept you and that you're going to be happy there. And that's really all that we can do in the end is, and again, that goes back to my planning, apply to a broad range of schools in terms of what sort of school it is, what they offer, and their acceptance rate, not just their acceptance rate, but also make sure that you're applying to schools that you're very confident that you'll be accepted to. It's okay to risk and apply to schools that you're not confident you'll be accepted to, because you might really fit their profile for that year and be accepted. Having a good plan and applying broadly is the best strategy that you can have, rather than necessarily thinking about all the individual parts separately and wondering which one is going to be the best. Letters of recommendation are a really great thing. Most schools still require them. They're not going to be the thing that keeps you from being accepted, but they might be the thing that really pushes you over the line. I answered your question. Excellent. Thank you, Cindy. If there are no more questions, I know we're way over, and I really appreciate all of y'all who stayed to hear me talk. I know that I have students too, and so I know that 8:40 can be really late, and I really appreciate your time for allowing me to talk again. Ramon, you just can't get rid of me. I keep coming back, and I love that, and I hope you do too. And if you have any other questions, again, I'm really easy to find at applywithsanity.com in lots of different ways. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I will make sure that this part of the meeting is isolated and posted on our website. We have a college readiness tab under parent resources. I can't thank you enough for that. Also on our YouTube page, our channel, wildly popular. I swear, I think we've got maybe 25 subscribers now, maybe. We have all of our college readiness series on there. And so with that committee chair's permission, we can add this to that. So I think it'll be an excellent addition. And lastly, if you want to hear any of Mr. Holloway's previous talks, we have those on our previous meetings. So yeah, anyways, more college information, because if you're like me, you can't get enough, because God, I had one last year. It's a slog, but they go. Eventually they go. So anyways, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.